Coastal Retirement fans, we are starting a new sub-series where I get to interview fascinating local people. A lot of them. We're going to start with some of my clients, and it's going to be short form, 20, 30 minutes. Kind of takes the pressure off of my guests for filling a full hour of our typical radio show that broadcasts locally. This one will be exclusively found on our various podcast channels, and it's going to be all about our guests and the things that they do. I have some really fascinating clients that are involved in a lot of different things, and I have clients that are very heavily involved in the local community, and anything I can do to help them get the word out about both their businesses and or their charities, I think is a good thing. Our first guest is going to be a longtime friend, a longtime client. His name is David Stidham, and as you will hear in the conversation that's going to follow, David has his hands in a lot of things. He is probably best known as the president, CEO of IL Group, and also the Crye-Leike real estate brokerage, Crye-Leike Gulf Coast. But as you'll hear in our conversation, he is also very heavily involved in the founding of a local charity, Impact Gulf Coast, and he's about to kick off a title company. So David's got a lot going on. So stay tuned. Here is my conversation with David Stidham of IL Group, Crye-Leike. David, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So we got David Stidham here, taking the time to record. Busy day. I'm catching you on.
Yes, has been. Unexpectedly.
Life in never a dull moment in the life of a serial entrepreneur, I would say.
That is true.
So, David, we're here today. You are the owner and or founder of a collection of companies that are all based here on the Gulf Coast, right?
Correct.
Right. I want to kind of detail for the audience the different businesses that you have and what they do, and then dive into a little bit of your story, your entrepreneurial background, what led you to this point, what do you consider your biggest successes, what's your biggest fears, all this stuff, right? Because this show tends to get listened to not only by pre-retirees and retirees along the Gulf Coast, but we have a lot of business people tune in, right? So sometimes we try to leave little tidbits of wisdom if we can. I know I have learned a lot just having been serving you for quite a few years now. I've learned a lot how you conducted your business. I pay attention, and I think you do a great job with handling certain things. So let's talk about the different businesses. You want to start? Let's start with IL Group.
IL Group.
Which is probably the hardest one to explain.
It is the hardest one to explain, but it's the one I've done the longest. So okay. I'm a licensed insurance agent in all 50 states, and we do business across the country, specifically with banks and mortgage companies and credit unions. And basically, we provide coverage for their mortgage or auto portfolio.
Well, now, so when you say you provide coverage, so if I'm somebody that takes a loan out at a bank, and typically the bank is going to ask me, let's say I take a car loan out, and I got this car and the bank wants to get full coverage on that. Let's say when would you come in? Are you going to be a person going to be shopping for you immediately, or is there some trigger event to where you would come in and service this type of loan?
Yeah, typically we'll do business with a specific bank, and we will provide coverage for the bank in the event that the consumer no longer has coverage. So we only step in on the backside, and we provide coverage on the backside for the lender themselves. We don't really provide front-end coverage for the consumer. We're really just trying to protect the bank's portfolio. And we do that across the country, from New Hampshire to Idaho to Texas, so just depending on where it is. We have a small group of people that actually travel the country, both sales, and we also have a customer service team that actually goes out and works with every single client we have across the country. And they're basically making sure that the products that we sold to the clients are being delivered in the way that we told them they would be delivered, that we are providing the customer service levels that they want. And we do a lot of quality control, as well as calibrating to make sure that every single thing that is supposed to be done is being provided properly. We use multiple providers. So, for example, we are the marketing arm and the relationship management piece, and then we outsource the back room to some larger company. So, again, we're mainly looking to protect the bank's interest in that piece of collateral, whether it's a car, a boat, or a house, and making sure that they have coverage in the event there's damage in the future. Well,
so let's compare and contrast that a little bit. So like, Progressive or Allstate or Geico or any of those big retail brand names, your part of the industry, I would think, would be more niche
It is. There's probably about a dozen companies across the United States that provide this type of product. And we actually are one of the only independent agencies in the country that I'm aware of. There's very few of us that actually provide it on the level we do across the country for multiples. Most of the time, it's going to be a small independent agent locally that's doing things in their local market. And we're one of the few that actually go across the country with it.
Now, you're also very heavily involved in real estate, which we're going to get into, but you had told me one time on this side of the business, the IO group, the lender-placed business, that when times are tough, that's when things actually are good for the business. Is that true?
Yes.
How would
usually,
you phrase it?
Well, typically when the economy is turning south, then the insurance piece goes up because of just the basic economies of scale.
That's one of the first things people probably drop.
It is. The insurance gets dropped. They can't afford the insurance, so we step in and provide coverage.
Very good. And how walk the listeners through, before we pivot to your other companies, walk the listeners through how some of a banker is listening, and maybe they've got, I'm assuming all banks have some percentage of loans that have this situation, right?
That's correct. Typically, it's going to be less than 2% of their entire book of business that they have on their books. And every bank that we do business with will have some small percentage. It could be bigger, it could be smaller. It depends on the mix of their book and where their properties are located. Obviously, things that are in a coastal region like we are here at the Gulf Coast, they may have a larger percentage just because of the nature of the hurricane exposure that we have here.
What do you mean by that? So when a hurricane hits, is that when people kind of like, oh gosh, I'm out of here?
No, it's typically that major insurance carriers stop writing business in those areas. And as a result, we step in and provide coverage.
Very good. And if someone was interested, what's the process look like? I mean, is this something where banks are actively looking for different resources for around this? Or is this something that, oh my gosh, I got these handful of loans with no insurance. Who do I call? How does that process look when you're onboarding somebody, a new client?
Most of the time, most banks have someone they're already working with, but they may be looking for a better stick to follow. And that's where we come in. So we come in and take a look at the products that they currently have, and we try to match them up with the best in the marketplace. So, for example, they may be using XYZ agent, and then maybe they're having issues with that, or it's not providing the coverage they need. So we're going to come in and take a look at that and make some suggestions of, here are some things we can look at to improve your processes, to improve your coverages, to make sure you don't have an uninsured loss. But we actually have a team here in Gulf Shores that is our sales team. And that would be the first step, is to reach out to one of those people. And then we can in turn start the communications.
Well, last question before we go to the next company. You mentioned independent. So regular listeners of our various radio shows and podcasts knows that I'm a big proponent of independent. So IO Group is 100% independent, locally owned, right?
Correct. Locally owned and operated, or independent. So an independent company is not going to be one that's tied to, say, the big major carriers that you're accustomed to in the market. Like State Farm or Allstate, things of that nature. We actually represent all the other carriers out there in this marketplace. There's, like I said, there's probably about a dozen. And so we can actually go to any market. We're not tied to just one.
Right. And in some degree, you can shop the rate to some, depending on the situation. Is that
correct?
Okay. And as an independent, do you feel like that's kind of your superpower when you're competing with maybe one of the more nationally owned brands? Is that how you come in and position yourself?
It is. We're trying to position ourselves that we can come in with either a better rate or a better process or a better fee structure for the lender.
Okay, very good. All right, so we mentioned real estate, and we're going to come back when I have some questions around where IL Group sprung from and your background. But before we do that, let's go to our next company here. So listeners, if you haven't picked up on, David's a busy guy and he's got a lot going on with a lot of different companies. In addition to IL Group, you also own Crye-Leike Gulf Coast Real Estate.
That's correct.
All right, and that's a brokerage.
It is a brokerage. We are a franchise location of Crye-Leike Realtors out of Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay. What's the normal? So you're listing properties. Are you primarily along the Gulf Coast, exclusively along Gulf Coast? Tell me a little bit about the business.
We are primarily in South Baldwin County, so anywhere from Daphne, Fairhope, Foley, Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Fort Morgan area. We also extend over to the Perdido Key and Pensacola areas. But typically, we are listing residential property. We don't really do much commercial. A lot of resort property, things of that nature, which is very common in our market here.
Yes, it is. What led you to that? Because I know you, correct me if I'm wrong, you're somebody who does quite a bit of due diligence. You were wanting to get into that side of the business. I guess, one, what led you down that path to wanting to open a brokerage? And then two, why Crye-Leike?
So we were looking to diversify, and at that time, we were looking at what matches up to what we do in the insurance business. And so real estate is very similar in nature to what we do on the insurance side. It's a very similar market. It's relationship driven, just like our bank clients are relationship driven. This is you're building a relationship with consumers that become your clients, where you're representing their homes, whether they're the buyer or the seller. So we actually then went to looking for a franchise, because initially we started out as just a local independent real estate office known as Isle Group Real Estate, and we were looking for a franchise. So we looked at Crye-Leike, which is a name I was previously familiar with, because they also are in the insurance market.
Oh, okay.
They have independent insurance agencies that sell homeowners and auto insurance to the consuming public. So we actually drove to Nashville to meet with Harold Crye and the team there to find out whether or not we were a good fit. And once we figured out that we basically had the same culture, the same philosophies on doing business, which is relationship driven, we decided that was a good fit. So we all agreed. And now we've been with them roughly about 6 years.
Oh gosh, I can't believe it's been that long.
It has.
Yeah, that went quick.
It did.
Yeah. What's it like in the so are you the acting broker then? How does that work?
I am currently the broker. Been the broker since 2020. And prior to that, I've had other brokers, but I've been the broker since 2020. And we're kind of in a growth mode. We're looking to add realtors to our team. We're looking to list properties. We've actually converted in the last year with all the changes in the marketplace to where we actually have more listings than buyers, but we still work with both. Each market has its own place. I typically handle most of the things that are in the Gulf Shores, Orange Beach area. And then the rest of my team handles stuff outside of that area.
How do you all generate leads? How's that look?
Most of it is just relationship driven.
Right.
It's people we've known or we've met, or people we've done business with in the past, whether that could be a bank client that we've done business with, whether that is somebody who is locally here in our community that we've gotten to know well. So it really just depends. And there's also lead generation services you can do. We've used some of those in the past, and some are successful and some are not.
Right. Yeah. It's similar to my line of work.
It is.
There's every Tom, Dick, and Harry hits me up with a new lead gen
Every day.
And I've tried a couple, and a couple were worthwhile, but like you said, at the end of the day, it comes down to relationships, especially for you listeners that are not familiar or not from Baldwin County. There's a lot of realtors in Baldwin County. It's a very competitive marketplace.
It is. We joke that as soon as they cross the bridge in Gulf Shores, everyone gets a real estate license. So
that's probably about semi-accurate. So do you feel on that side with your local presence, if you are in a situation where maybe someone is shopping, what do you think makes you all unique to the experience if somebody's looking for a listing agent?
I really think it's more about the relationship and whether or not you click with each other. Not everyone works with everyone else, and you really need to find someone that you're comfortable with. And I've actually recently had a transaction where I actually showed the property, but at the same time I was a listing agent, and I kind of backed out of it and was like, let's go find you a buyer's representative so that you can have your own representation in this situation. Sometimes you can get into where you represent both sides, but then you get into some conflicts of interest. So I typically adopt the attitude of I only want to represent one side.
Well, and you mentioned, 6 years with Crye-Leike, but how many years have you been down here doing business?
Oh, I've been in this market for 20 years.
Right. So you said that, you in jest, but you said when people cross the bridge, they immediately go straight to get their real estate license. The problem sometimes with real estate, it's easy come, easy go to some degree. I mean, the test can be somewhat difficult, but it's not the barrier to entry in that particular market is not super high. Do you think one of the selling points would be the fact that you've actually got a beautiful physical office? You've been here for 20 plus years. You ain't going anywhere. Have you ever had any feedback around that? Because I have worked with realtors that weren't in the business 6 months later, right? No,
yes.
Not to pick on realtors. I'm just saying it's just, you see people move in and out of real estate all the time. Do you think it's important that you are you're very connected in the community? You've got this great office where you can meet here. Do you think that's a great selling point to people looking for a listing agent or a buying agent?
I think it is, because that way they know where to find you. We've been in this same office for over 15 years, so we haven't moved. And I will go back and say that, yes, I did mean that everyone who crosses that bridge gets their real estate license, including myself. So
Yeah, fair, right. I had mine at one time, a long time ago, way back in Missouri. All right, very good. So IO Group, which is kind of the origin, the OG business, right?
Yes.
It's the foundation of everything else you've done. Then we got Crye-Leike, And then we've got a new, I'm going to save the charity for last, but we've got a new business that's coming on the scene here pretty quickly. That's going to be saltwater title. Are we okay to talk about that yet, or are we revealing a great secret?
Well, it was a secret for a little while, but we have launched it. We made the announcement at the most recent First Friday Forum with the Chamber of Commerce in our area. And so as of September 1st, we should be live. We are actually using some of the most advanced technology in the industry for that, to where we actually automate everything. And we are using a lot of bells and whistles to make sure that we prevent fraud, that we verify everyone's identity. So we're going through all those steps right now to make sure that all the technology is up and running, making sure that we've covered all of our bells and whistles and crossed all our T's and dotted all of our I's to make sure that we hit the ground running. We expect to be live, as I said, on September 1st. We just made that announcement, so we already have people lined up to start sending us business as of September. I would say that we will actually be using a closing attorney who's going to be our title agent initially. We are also working on getting our own title agent licenses as well. There's 4 of us within the office that will also have that in addition to the closing attorney. So we're putting a lot of time and effort into it to make sure that we've set up correctly, and we're spending a lot of our cash and resources to make sure that we're operating at the top of the marketplace.
So you said business. Who would be sending you business in a title company? Are you leaning on the other relationships you have with IL Group and Crye-Leike? Is everything kind of intertwined to some degree?
It is to some degree. So we're starting out with Deanna Lonsdale is joined us as our marketing person. She's done this for probably about 8 to 10 years in this market, and she actually goes out and meets with realtors and brokerages in the area to solicit business for them to come to us. And as we talked about before, the selling point for us is going to be relationship. It's going to be responsiveness. It's going to be, the automation pieces and making sure that we're providing everything and being just better than the competition when we can. So that's kind of what we're focusing on, making sure we do what we tell them we're going to do. That's what everything we've done, whether it's with IL Group, Crye-Leike, or with Saltwater Title, we're all geared toward making sure if we've told them we're going to do something, then we're going to do that.
Well, so I bought a house, 4 years ago now, and even then it was heavy paperwork. Now, I've done a lot of real estate, but the majority of the real estate I did now is 20 years in the past. Even fast forwarding just 4 years ago, heavy paperwork involved. Now, fortunately, mine was a relatively simple transaction. Everything got filed correctly. I've had no problems, no cloudy title, anything like that. But when you're talking about doing the automation and things like that, is that getting away from so much printed paper, or is that still going to be part of the process? How's that look?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
You're never going to away from paper in any of these markets. Mortgage, title, there's a lot of paper involved, but we're going to automate as much as we can where we can do it electronically. But when you go to closing, there's still going to be a lot of paperwork that you're going to have to sign. So
yeah, but if you've got, you and I are young in the whole scheme of things, but if you got a young buyer that can't click on a few things to at least get the process started, I would think that would be a little bit of a detriment. Have you got any feedback around that? Like, are younger buyers a little different when it comes to some of this stuff?
I would agree with that. I mean, the technology we're going to use will allow you to click on an app or click on the website to make an order, to fill out the information, to provide, your identity, your driver's license, social security card, all those things that are required. So yes, it will be a very much more automated and digital experience.
Very good. And last question on saltwater title, and this is it's going to show my ignorance, but in the title world, is it super competitive on price, or is it mainly relationship driven? How does one stick out outside of relationships? Are there any other key factors around cost or anything like that are important?
I mean, cost is always important, but there's really not that big of a difference from what I've seen in the overall price point. I think more of it is going to be regarding the service levels that you provide and the relationships that you build with everyone.
Very good. All right. So IL Group, Crye-Leike, and Saltwater Title, these are things that you're a businessman. These are things that you did, obviously, to create businesses, employ people, generate revenue, grow equity, all these things. As you've had success, and I've seen, I've known you now, going on 8 or 9 years. Who goes fast? As you have had more and more success, I saw a few years back, you had this desire to start giving back to the community. And I remember, I could be wrong, David, but at least 5 or 6 years ago, you started talking about, hey, I'd like to figure out a way to do a charity. So fast forward to today, I think this is a passion project for you, but I want to pivot to your final business, which is a charity, Impact Gulf Coast. So describe what Impact Gulf Coast is, what led you there, describe your passion for helping people. Why do you want to help people in this type of scenario?
Yeah, so it started several years ago where I started looking at the idea, and it took us about a year to actually get it created. But we did found a charity. It's a 501c3, Impact Gulf Coast. You can find us on the social media as well as on the internet. Essentially, over the years, I've seen family, friends, coworkers, and their spouses and their family and friends actually endure a lot of hardship through whether it's disease, no matter what it is, or other medical issues that come about where they can't afford to work. They can't work. They can't afford to travel if they need to go to Texas or somewhere for treatment. They may not can pay their rent because they can't work. So we started looking at that, and so what we've done is created a charity specific to if there is a medical issue that is resulting in a financial crisis, that we can step in and help these people. Whether that be through, we recently paid rent for someone where they couldn't pay their rent. We've had some others that we're looking at as well, but we've really just kicked it off. We have not really begun fundraising. We have currently personally funded this project. I want to make sure that we have a number of success stories that we can point to before we actually start in the market trying to fundraise significantly. It is intended to be for people in the immediate area to start with. So that's going to be in the Baldwin County area, and then we will start branching out from there. But we are looking at trying to help anyone in the market or in our area that's got a financial need resulting from medical issues. And, it is a passion project because I've lost, myself, 5 or 6 family members and friends from disease, and I saw the struggle. And it can be such a simple thing. It can be that they can't, they want a wig because they've lost their hair and they can't afford it. Or it can be that, they need some care given to them. So that, they need a sitter service or something like that. So those are the type of things we're looking at. There is a process involved in that. They have to go to our website. They have to fill out an application. There are some documents they'll have to provide to evidence that, they are in financial need and they don't have the means to meet them. So that's kind of where that is. My family specifically is the one overseeing this right now. We have no paid employees. Every dollar we've earned is just going directly out, whether that's to just the necessities of keeping the charity open or directly to, someone in the community that is in need of help.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the genesis of this charity was you decided you wanted to start helping people, but the more research you did, because you're very thorough on research, you felt, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but there was some frustration around the fact that you couldn't find a way to directly help people. So you mentioned earlier paying the rent. So Impact Gulf Coast is designed to directly help people, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of charities out there, but a lot of them have a lot of overhead, and we are trying to avoid that. We wanted as many of the dollars to go directly to people to help them as possible. And while we can't necessarily give cash directly to an individual, we can give it to them by means of paying their rent or paying their utility bills, paying for a plane fare back and forth to treatment, paying for hotels if they have to live in, say, Houston for a while. I actually recently learned of 2 families through people I know that one is having to stay in Houston for 3 months for treatment, and the other one's having to stay in Arizona for 2 months for treatment. And that in and of itself is a very expensive undertaking. It's
terrible.
So I'm not sure how they can afford that. So these particular families actually have means where, they're not having to get assistance, but most people would not have the ability to do that.
Right. Yeah. A lot of people nodding their head right now listening to this. All right. So let's sum up the businesses. IO Group is for lender-placed insurance. That's been, how long has IO Group been in business?
30 years.
30 years. That's incredible. And I'm assuming 30 years ago, it was even more niche then than it is now.
Correct.
Right. The industry has probably matured quite a bit over those 30 years. Right. Crye-Leike is a full retail brokerage, listings, buying agents, selling agents, typically along the Gulf Coast or, like you said, South Baldwin County up to Faro, up to my part of the neck of the woods. Saltwater Title coming out of the gate here. It's a great name. I like that. I'm, Gulf Coast Financial Advisor, Saltwater Title, anything that does the water, I'm good with that. And then we've got Impact Gulf Coast. So you got a lot going on with all that.
There's a lot going on. Sometimes it's hard to keep up.
Well, let's talk. All right. So let's pivot. let's tell the listeners a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Are you married? Do you have kids? Walk us through. We don't need the day you were born necessarily, but walk us through what kind of got you to this point, and especially where on the path of your growing up and maturing into an adult did you decide, hey, I want to be a business person. I want to be an entrepreneur. What's that? Give us a little bit of background on you.
So I started out in Birmingham, Alabama. Grew up there, and my original career started there. I was at AmSouth Bank many years ago, and went to another mortgage company after that. And then in 1994, I'm aging myself now.
It happens.
I went to work for my father-in-law, who owned a company called Kasem Financial. And I actually do attribute a lot of what I've learned and what I've become over the years to him, because I started in '94 and I've been with the company ever since.
Mr. Larry.
Mr. Larry, yep. So, he taught me a lot, and he and his wife give back a lot as well. And so I saw that over time, and, at the same time, we built what is now called IL Group into a large national, brokerage with banks specifically. And, through that time, I guess we sort of started looking at ways to diversify, and we've made a few mistakes, I can say. Not every project we've taken on has been successful. Some of the people in the community may remember a company called Daylight Donuts. We had 4 locations in Baldwin County, one including in the Daphne area. And we all kind of joked about how it was a lot of fun for the first 6 months, but after that, it really wasn't. It became pretty much a community project for us because we really never made any money. And so then the oil spill happened with BP, and then that's about the time we shut it down. So that was a learning experience. I will never do food service again, and God bless all the people that do food service, because that's a special niche market as well.
No doubt.
So we started looking at things that were more in tune with what we do, or what our background was, and so that's kind of led us to real estate and title and everything else.
Very good. Okay, keep going.
Keep going.
Keep going. Yeah. So, what have you learned about? So I've been around you long enough. I've seen some of the ups and downs, right? I've seen the genesis of some of these things. I saw the large business transition you did, however many years ago it was, related to IL Group. What if somebody is listening to this and they're thinking, boy, those entrepreneurs just all got it made? What's some of the things that you've had to overcome to get to this point?
Well, probably personal fear of making a decision. Roughly 8 years ago, when I bought IL Group as a whole, and now I'm total 100% owner, I had to go out and get a loan for that. So that was a huge risk on my part. It's paid off in the long run, but that was a risk that my wife and I talked about extensively about, do we want to do this or not? Because, it was a lot of money to us. And, at the same time, you can't be afraid of making a decision. It may be the wrong decision. We may make a decision today at 8 o'clock, and by noon we're like, well, that was dumb.
Right.
Why don't we do that?
Right.
Then we reverse it and go the opposite direction. At the same time, I've opened businesses that were really never made any money, and so you have to decide at some point you've got to pull the plug on that and move on. So you have to be able to transition, and, in sales they talk about you're a chameleon, because you have to be a chameleon with what you do. And it's the same thing as an entrepreneur. You have to make sure that you're a chameleon and that you can adopt to the times. And, social media was not a thing 30 years ago.
Right.
We didn't even have cell phones when I started out years ago, which is aging myself again.
How did we survive, right?
I know, it's like, so I've lost touch with so many friends over the years because we didn't have cell phones back then. But so there's a lot of things that have changed over the time, and you just have to keep up with it. And, technology changes. And it doesn't mean that you have to know everything, but you need to surround yourself with people that do know those things. So that's what I've tried to do, is I've tried to pull people in that know things I don't know. I don't have to know everything. I have to know people that know those answers. And so my company's also a family-owned company. So I have family members that work here. I have non-family members that work here, and they all contribute in a different way. I could not do this all by myself. And thank God that I do have the staff that help me, because otherwise we would not be successful.
Would you say your managing style is give them the proper tools and then let them flourish on their own? How would you describe your managerial style?
I would say it's evolved over time. I was very type A for a long time, and I've had to learn to let go. They are very smart people. They know way more than I do about some of these topics, and I have to let them run with it. I'm still there to pull back when I feel like it's going the wrong direction. But at the same time, you have to let them do what they do well. And you're going to succeed as long as you surround yourself with people that can actually make those decisions.
Last question. Was there ever a moment where you sat down or were thinking, had a moment to reflect, and you thought, hey, I got this figured out. This is going to work?
Oh, God, no. I mean, every day I have that same conversation in my own head. It's like, why am I doing this? Should I be doing this? Should I sell this stuff? What should I be doing with this? So and I'm sure other business owners have the same thoughts and everything. Like there was a restaurant locally here that I really liked, and they're gone now, but because, it just didn't work. Sometimes you have to be willing to pull the plug and just move on.
Yeah, I am case A example of, I was in real estate, started really young, and had about a 10-year run building homes and developing land. And then 2008 came along. And if I knew then what I know now, the outcome would have been dramatically different. And one of the things that I would have done, among multiple things I would have done different, probably the biggest thing is I would not have been so emotional about facing the facts. The writing was on the wall. It was right there. It was something now, if this were to happen in any business I have now, it would be very clear to me right away. And if, looking back in the entrepreneurial, you and I have talked about this, you and I have not had, a traditional W-2 job for 20 plus years, if you will, right? And so you learn to be adaptable, like you said earlier. You learn to juke and jive, but one of the other big things you learn is this isn't working, and that's not necessarily a reflection on my failures per se. Maybe I could have done things different, but this just isn't working in this iteration, right? And also, and I think, you probably could attest to this too, sometimes you let it go. Sometimes you pivot and you sell it to somebody that may have, hopefully, the skill set to take it to where you think it could be. Is that fair?
That's fair, yes.
Yeah, very good. All right. Any last little tidbits of wisdom you want to leave before we wrap up?
As my kids would say, I have no wisdom to offer, so...
Well, I got to give a shout out to your wife.
Yep, my wife, Debbie. Without her, I couldn't do all this.
Yes.
She's very supportive. My family's very supportive of it. That's very important if you're going to be an entrepreneur in business at all, because, it takes time. There are days that I leave the house at 4 a.m. and I don't get home until 3 days later at midnight.
Right.
Because I was taught that you do what's required of the job. And if you need to be somewhere, you do it. Honestly, they all kind of joke that if I call in sick, I must be in the hospital.
You must be really sick.
Because I must be really sick. So.
Yeah, my dad, when I was younger, I'd pester my dad, what time are we getting done today? He said, well, we'll get done when the work is done.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Exactly.
Well, very good. So thank you for joining us today. Listeners, I'm going to include all the contact information for each of these companies and then the charity that we discussed in the comments section, or in the link. There's going to be links with phone numbers, website addresses, all that. Make sure you reach out to David. You got a lot to offer. And last thing, David, before we do close, give the listener just a little tidbit or a little piece of your involvement in the community, all the things that you're doing. I know you're big in the chamber.
Yeah, we're big in the Chamber of Commerce, the Gulf Coast Chamber of Commerce down here, and I'm on the board of directors for that for the last couple of years. We do a lot of activities with the Chamber. We sponsor a lot of events. We were sponsors for the Balloon Festival in Foley this past year, the last couple of years. We've been involved with the Shrimp Festival. We do a lot of other things as well. And we do a lot of charity work as well. We don't necessarily publicize everything we do, but if you go to our website, usually there's something out there about what we're doing.
Very good. Well, thanks for joining us. That was David Stidham, IL Group, Crye-Leike, Saltwater Title, and Impact Gulf Coast. Great job.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, LLC, known as GCFA, is a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Alabama and in such other jurisdictions where it is registered, filed the required notices, or is otherwise excluded or exempted from such registration and or notice filing requirements. Registration does not indicate or imply that GCFA has attained a particular level of skill or ability, nor does it constitute an endorsement of the firm by the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, or any other state securities regulator. The Coasting and Retirement Radio program serves mainly to disseminate general information, including those pertaining to GCFA's advisory services, together with access to additional investment-related information, publications, materials, and links. The publication of this radio show should not be construed by any client and or prospective client as GCFA solicitation to effect or attempt to effect transactions in securities, nor should be interpreted as GCFA providing personalized investment advice or any type of professional advice for compensation wherever this program is broadcast. Any subsequent direct communication by GCFA with a prospective client will be conducted by a representative that is either registered or qualifies for an exemption or exclusion from registration in the state where the prospective client resides. Certain information, news stories, headlines, data, charts, graphs, figures, or statistics presented on this radio program may have been obtained from third-party sources that are believed to be generally reliable, but which GCFA may not have independently verified. GCFA does not and cannot guarantee the timeliness, accuracy, or reliability of any such third-party information and undertakes no obligation to update or correct any information that may become obsolete, unreliable, or inaccurate. This radio program also contains the opinions, views, and perspectives expressed by Josh Knoll and any other GCFA representative, which are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions, views, or perspectives of GCFA as a firm. Such personal views and opinions should not be construed as endorsements or professional advice from GCFA. GCFA makes no representation or warranty regarding the accuracy, completeness, or reliability of any information on this radio program and disclaims any liability for any direct or indirect loss or damage incurred from using or relying on such information. GCFA and Providence Partners are not affiliated, nor are any of their respective representatives.